Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another jade video. How do you get your jade plant to have a nice thick woody main trunk like this? Well, today I'm going to share 5 tips on how to make your plant look like this. So let's check it out. Sunlight is what fuels this plant. If you don't have good light, then you're going to end up with a long, kind of stretched out, leggy, droopy stem, and it's definitely not going to get a thick trunk over time. This jade plant is in my south-facing window. I would only ever recommend a south or west-facing unobstructed window so that your plant can get the most amount of light to generate new growth through photosynthesis. Now that we are fully into spring and now approaching summer, these are the months where it's going to grow the most. So you want to have it in the best light possible and at least a minimum of 6 hours of direct light throughout the day. Now I know there's probably situations where people have it in less light and it continues to grow, but you want to maximize growth. So you want to put it in your brightest location. Now I know not everyone has a west or south facing window, and if you don't, then you can definitely supplement it with grow lights. There are many options out there for light meters. I like to use the foot candle setting, and you definitely want a reading of 1,000 foot candles or higher. Now in my south-facing window during certain times of the day, it can reach up to 4 or even 5, 6,000 foot candles depending on if it's overcast or just the type of light. But you want to make sure that it gets bright light. A great way to tell if your plant is getting enough light is if you start to see these little red edges on the leaves. This is what's called sun stressing. It doesn't harm the plant. It's just the plant's way of protecting itself against intense light. But you do see they come out with these absolutely gorgeous colors like this one right here. This one's under grow lights. This one's under natural sunlight. And I have the lights really close to this one so you can see just how beautifully red and sometimes they actually turn yellow and orange with different varieties like the sunset jade. But this will not harm the plant, but this is a good sign that your plant is receiving enough light. Now tip number 2 is pruning. When the plant starts to push out new growth, it's going to focus all its energy on pushing out new stems and leaves. And what I like to do is if the node gets, or if the stem gets to be more than 3 nodes, then I like to just cut the top of that stem off like that. That will now refocus the energy of the plant to producing branches or new stems, but also it redirects the energy back into the main trunk, helping to, I guess, thicken up the trunk to support new growth. So every springtime, I just go around and just kind of snip off the tops of every stem like that. This will help, I guess, contain the overall size of the plant. I want this to remain a very compact tree. I don't want it to get too large, but also this really helps thicken up the stem and it gets this nice woody bark. And that's all I do. You just go from stem to stem, and sometimes they might have some new leaves like this. I just cut those off as well. So every portion, I just go around and snip the tops off. So eventually it will produce 2 new branches from the same sides as these leaves. So there'll be 1 new sprout coming out here and 1 here. So there will be 2 new branches forming, and then as those grow, I will trim those back as well. Now the next thing is not over potting your jade plants. Some people might think if you put it in a larger pot, it's going to grow much faster, but what that does, very similar to how it produces stems and branches, is if you put it in a larger pot, the plant is going to focus the majority of its energy on producing roots. Just like most other succulents, they like to be a little bit more snug in their pot in regards to the root system. Same with Hoyas. You don't want them to get like super root bound, but they definitely appreciate a smaller root system in a pot. So you don't want to go something too large. Now I think for this one specifically, it's probably been in this pot for about 5 years. And what I do is every couple of years, I will take it out of the pot, give it a good soil refresh. And most times the entire root system will consume the pot, and I simply just do a root prune. Now, if you're just starting out with jade plants and you're unsure of what pot size to start with, I'll always say, just as kind of a rule of thumb for myself as well, choose a pot that is just slightly larger than the root ball itself. So if the root ball is like a softball size, you know, just choose something that's maybe 1 inch larger than that, and that'll be a sufficient size. Eventually those roots will fill out the pot, and you can upsize it if you want. But to get a thick trunk like this and a mini tree, you want to keep it in the same size pot and just keep doing that repruning every couple of years, root pruning I mean, every couple of years, and you'll end up with the plant focusing more of its energy on this big, thick main trunk. Now, going back to the concept of what fuels the plant, sunshine is only one component of that. Now, the next thing is water. So you want to make sure that you choose a soil that doesn't retain moisture for too long. Otherwise, it's going to cause root rot. Jade plants, they have very thin and fibrous roots. So it doesn't take long to rot those little roots if the soil is staying wet for, more than a few days. That's why I use this gritty mixture. What I do is, actually this morning I took this to the bathroom and I gave it 2 full cans of water. That way I know it is thoroughly watered, but it has to go through that wet and dry cycle. So now that I've watered it, I'm gonna let it dry out completely. So that might be 2 weeks. It all depends on your conditions and environment, but you just wanna make sure that you have a proper soil, proper pot, and there's a drain hole in the bottom, as well as giving it plenty of water and plenty of sunshine. Now the other thing that it needs is nutrients, so fertilizer. I did put, I think, these little round balls here, these are slow release fertilizer. I just mix it in the soil, and every time I give it water, then it slowly releases nutrients to the root system. So sunlight, water, and nutrients are what fuels this plant. Now the 4th tip is actually taking your jade plants out in the summer. Right now where I am, it's still a little bit cool at night, so you want roughly a low of 10 degrees Celsius. I'll put it what it is in Fahrenheit at the bottom here, but that is the minimum nighttime temperatures that you want for a jade plant. Now, when you do bring it outside, you don't want to just throw it in full sun because you'll definitely scorch the leaves. But what I typically do is find a nice shady corner in my backyard. So it's going to start off in full shade for maybe a week or 2, and then I will introduce it to a little bit of morning direct sunlight from the east. But over time, it'll acclimate to not only the higher light, but also the heat. The jade plants love hot temperatures and they will explode with growth. So this is kind of the best way to get or to maximize the growth of your jade plant is take it outside for the summer and just kind of let it do its thing. I'm guessing it'll probably be another week or 2 before I start bringing my plants outside. Again, just making sure those nighttime temperatures don't get too cold at night. Otherwise you could end up freezing these little leaves and you'll end up with just a mushy plant. Now the last tip is probably the hardest, and that is having patience. This plant, for reference, is coming up on 10 years old. I took this as a small cutting from the mother plant back there, but unfortunately these aren't really fast growers. I would say maybe slow to medium, and just over time you'll see it take shape. But definitely having patience and understanding that this type of tree-like structure, as well as the thick woody stems, it actually does take quite a long time. But that's just kind of what to expect when growing houseplants. They teach you to have patience and just enjoy watching them grow. So those are the 5 main things that will get you a thicker woody stem over time. But like I said, just understand that it does take time. What I like to do, and that's kind of how I started out this channel, is I just take a couple pictures or maybe even a video just so you can see the progression over the years, and hopefully it'll get a nice tree-like structure like this. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. If you want to watch another jade video, click this one right here. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye.